What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the second official album by Novi Novak. Basically, this project is called Theory of Cognition, and it came out in the winter of 2012. The thing about this particular project is Novi Novak's information out there is pretty low-key for the most part. I've reviewed at least two of his prior projects. I'd have to say he dropped two projects in 2011, one of which was Hibernation's Over, which I reviewed back in December. Then one of which I reviewed with Jackal Goldkick and some other folks, which was the Aura of a Supervillain EP from the summer of 2011. So this particular project, Novi Novak did eventually release this project as Rob Level in 2016, and it was distributed to places like iTunes and things like that. As far as that particular pitch kind of has with it, and that particular version, the album Theory of Cognition, came out in early 2016. But the actual variation, I don't know if this was a mixtape prior hand, but I would have to say this was originally an album or a mixtape that released in early 2012. It came out a year after this project came a year after Hibernation's Over in early 2011. I'd have to suppose so. It's a pretty good concept. I don't know if there's like another variation of album artwork floating around out there like there is with Hibernation's Over. I'd have to say, but it's pretty dope enough concept to get this one in particular. So last time when I reviewed Novi Novak, when I reviewed Hibernation's Over, I damn near gave that particular album a 10 out. I damn near gave that particular album like a 10 out of 10. Basically got like a 9.5, something like that. It was a pretty pitch of an album, I'd have to say. Definitely had some bubblers and boilers on there. Really had like a pretty similar style to like Young Money and stuff like that. Just some nightclub type gems. Novi Novak was definitely pretty good at like those Drake type hooks. I'd have to say he had a good booming type personality with some good pitches on there, just a lot of good hoppers and things like that. And he also had some good songwriting on there. It's just kind of the concept that he wasn't just a club hopper and things like that, just vehicle bound type tunes, those sorts of things. There were some smokage and nightclub songs and stuff like that, but there also were some widespread type tunes on there besides that. So there just were some good moments. He freestyles pretty good on songs like Black and Yellow, the remix that he did to that particular song. There was just some good variations to that particular concept, but without like a big ubiquitous song, but without like a big kind of ubiquitous type song like Black and Yellow, it's kind of interesting to see the concept of what he did this particular time because he didn't have like a Wiz Khalifa song to rely on this time. So this time there were four singles out this particular project, at least four music videos that were distributed to help promote this particular album. And I'll go ahead and talk about those. So basically on Rob Level's YouTube, there were a number of these. The four singles were One Size Fits All, Chicago, Talk to 'em, and Friends and Enemies. So I'd have to say about those particular ones. Basically, out of those particular four music videos that were released, I'd say the biggest one out of those was probably Friends and Enemies. And then possibly like, I'd say probably the biggest one out of those four singles was Friends and Enemies. That was like the largest one. It's definitely one that got that Friends and Enemies got like a fifth of a million plays on YouTube as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. So yeah, Novi Novak was a relatively large deal throughout the early 2010s as far as that pitch kind of happens. There's just some good stuff kind of on here, some good assortments of type things. I do recommend a good several amount of songs on here. So we'll go ahead and talk about the singles and then we'll get to some of these in terms of the songs I recommend. So out of 18 songs on this particular album, I wound up recommending to you 11. So that's a pretty fair amount. Not as good as Hibernation's Over, I kind of feel like, was still good enough to be able to suppose that Novak's kind of in the right direction as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with that. I noticed that there's not as many nightclub songs this time. It's kind of the concept. There's not when I liked the song last time, Hooked on the Feel and some of those type ones and Black and Yellow remix, that kind of boisterous, kind of rambunctious type energy that just had like some of that nightclub type of fare. There are some bops on here for kind of Outstein Life and Night Owl type temperatures as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, but it's just kind of a different concept just because not the full blown album. It's kind of like Novak knows that he wants to get some songwriting kind of done. It's just kind of the concept just to have other strengths and other kind of facets as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But it's just kind of, I feel like Friends and Enemies is just not the same song as like the Black and Yellow remix was from Hibernation's Over. It's just kind of the concept. It's just not quite as immediate and quite as like addictively catchy this time, but I think it's pretty hooky. I definitely like the concept. I feel like Friends and Enemies, one particular type sound that I think Novi Novak was really able to master was just the Empire State of Mind type sound, the sort of song that Jay-Z did with Empire State of Mind with Alicia Keys as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Just those kind of big city New York type anthems as far as that pitch kind of happens. They were very makeshift and kind of work a day, but still kind of a decent kind of city bop as far as that pitch kind of happens. There are some songs that kind of do that on here. I feel like songs like Friends and Enemies, Chicago, Talk to 'em are some examples of trying to master that particular kind of concept. It's just kind of the concept as far as saying that the unfortunate thing is I was kind of looking for another single like Hooked on the Feel, something like that. And I realized later on, I looked on Rob Level's YouTube. Apparently, Hooked on the Feel was released as a single back in the day, so it's a pretty good concept to get that one in particular. I don't know if I talked about that in the Hibernation's Over review, but that was basically a music video that got released for that one. So that's pretty good concept for that. But Yeah, we'll basically go ahead and talk about some of these songs on here. So, like I was saying, the only real song out of the four singles or the four music videos that I don't recommend is just Chicago. So we'll go ahead and talk about some of these. So One Size Fits All. One Size Fits All is a pretty good highlighted one. This is like a breezy kind of springtime bop. I would have to say it's like a city hopping type song with like a this like a city hopping type song with like a lackadaisical type pep about it. I would have to say, and it's just an earnest bustle of an outing song. I'd have to say, so pretty dope enough concept to get that one in particular. This one's pretty hooky. I'd have to say, definitely appreciate this one. One Size Fits All is pretty catchy. This reminds me of something that J. Cole would have done in like the early 2010s as far as that particular pitch kind of has with it. This is just very similar to like J. Cole, a little bit of Drake, a little bit of Jay-Z, and like the Blueprint 3 type era as far as that particular pitch kind of has with it. Just a real big city type stepper as far as that pitch kind of happens. It's really something that you'd listen to in like a breezy kind of springtime type era as far as that pitch kind of goes along. It's kind of city stepping like the relatively warm weather, just kind of having some pep in your step and just being a little bit earnest about it, just kind of just some bravado, just kind of having just like this almost like a dollar in a dream type mentality as far as that pitch kind of happens along with that. I mean, the thing about Novi Novak is he does have some character on these particular songs. I do like his affability on these particular songs because I kind of feel like he's kind of like a steadfast rapper on some of this particular album. I would have to say he just has enough personality to be able, he just has enough personality to be able to carry this particular type of stuff. There weren't a ton of rappers really doing the sort of pitch as to how he particularly kind of does it. He has his own take on some of these as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. It's kind of some of the concepts that he talks about on here, like talk to him would be a good example of that. One size fits all would be a good example. I mean, he is kind of a hustler and a motivator as far as that pitch kind of happens, but it's also just kind of the concept of just getting on the grind and being able to get towards it, and just being able to get some, just being able to push through and muscle through and be able to do some of those particular type things as far as that kind of goes along with it. So there's just some songs, like I was saying, that really do mimic almost like the same style of like Empire, really do almost mimic like the style of Empire State of Mind, and just some city stepping type ones, just circa the late 2000s, early 2010s as far as that kind of goes. Just some good concepts. Pretty good single. I feel like One Size Fits All is a nice one. Chicago is one that I don't recommend. This one just didn't really nail the affability that well. This one was just kind of a poor type one. Didn't really like the production on here. This is just another kind of big city type one. I mean, it's interesting to get some of these. It's good to get some of these big city type steppers as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But this one was just not an affable enough one in my particular taste as far as that kind of format went along with it. This was just one I didn't vibe with this much. Just didn't really enjoy the overall vibe and pitches, just like the energy and overall production fares to that one particularly kind of went. But Talk to Him was a pretty nice one. This is another one that had a music video towards it. This is a pretty dope one. Just would have to say this is another one that kind of has like the Empire State of Mind type template. I'd have to say it's like a steadfast kind of city malaise of a song. I'd have to say it's just like a regular day bustle type. This song is just a regular day bustle type fare. I would have to say about it. And this is just a good city, get to it. This is just a good city, get to it kind of vibes that this song particularly kind of has, and it's just kind of got some affable kind of drive about it. I'd have to say so. It's a pretty dope concept. Get that one. Just really appreciate this particular type song. This particular template works pretty well, but like I was saying, I would have really enjoyed another song like Black and Yellow or Hooked on the Feel, something like that from like his earlier days, just something with a more night out type pitch. There are some ones on here, like I feel like Anthem would have been a great choice for a single. Grind 365 would have been a great choice for a single. Everybody Know Me, maybe that wouldn't have been a good choice for a single, but maybe like a promotional single, street single, something like that would have been a pretty nice pitch to have gotten some of those. But Talk to Him is just another kind of steadfast type city type bustle type song that works pretty well. And then Friends and Enemies is a pretty highlighted one. This is the most popular song on. This is the most popular song of the four songs on Rob Level's YouTube, I'd have to say. And it's also the most popular song according to Spotify off this particular album, I'd have to say. So this is like a radio ready kind of adverse type cut, I'd have to say. And by that, I just mean like with adversity, that sort of stuff. This kind of falling outs with homies and stuff like that as things become frenemies and enemies and stuff like that, just within that particular pitch. Pretty nice bop to get that one. Has some character about it. This is just some basic kind of autumn malaise, I would have to say, and this is just good for like a day after hours kind of makeshift type tone of a song, I'd have to say. So it's pretty good concept. Get that one in particular. It's a real nice highlighted one. This one's pretty hooky. I would definitely have to say it has pretty good vocals from this chick on this particular song that does pretty well with that. I'd have to suppose just a nice enough one. This is the sort of stuff. This is a Rob Level exclusive type hit, so I'd have to say this is the sort of stuff as this is the sort of stuff as he was starting to flesh out his career, just being able to do some of these. But like I was saying, these songs are just have the similarity type pitch of just being big city kind of blue collar. They just have the concept of being like big city kind of blue collar, just kind of day after hours type pitches for like some makeshift as far as that fair kind of happens. I do feel like Rob Level needed more than just that particular connotation. It works for what it is, but it's just kind of, you look after, when you look at his biggest songs, the ones that had music videos towards them, it just kind of makes you wish for something a little bit more, just with some spark and overall vivacity as far as that pitch kind of has with it. But it's still good enough. I mean, I look after these, there's some good tunes on here. It's just they're kind of steadfast and just kind of plain, maybe not plain. They're just steadfast and kind of basic and like the appeal that they have in like a more makeshift type sense, I'd say. But it's good. I mean, these are good ones. It's definitely good to get some hustlers type makeshift as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Just because Jay-Z didn't really do that format very long, and Lil Wayne wasn't doing that, and Drake really didn't do that much either. So it's just a good enough concept to get some of these just as a rapper that kind of took that particular fold and did it. So I just would have to say, but so basically, I'll go ahead and recommend the 11 songs out of 18 I recommend to you. So we'll go ahead and talk about these. So they would be One Size Fits All, Grind 365, Anthem, Everybody Know Me, Face On, Friends and Enemies, Funeral Music, Let's Be Honest, One Take, Save Me, and Talk to 'Em. So a real particular highlight on here would be Everybody Know Me. Really enjoyed this one. This is a particularly nice one. This is like a murky kind of evening bubbler. I'd have to say this is a good smoke a late. The song is a good smoke a late stogie tune. I would have to say pretty dope concept. Get that one in particular. And this is just like a drowsy kind of residential night fear of a song. I'd have to say. So it's pretty good. So this is a pretty dope concept. Get this particular one. Definitely appreciate this particular one. There need to be more songs like this one. I would have to say this is a real nice one. This is probably one of the more gleaming type songs just within a night type pitch. There's a lot of songs that are kind of night owl type fare, which I do appreciate. I'm glad that Rob Level somewhat comes off as like a night owl on this particular album, because some of these songs didn't really pop up on like Hibernation's Over. I'd have to suppose there's some good night appeal just for stuff like that. There's definitely a good assortment of songs that are just good for like hitting up a gas station, getting some snackage, some things like that, some puppy chow, some of those type of things, and a Pepsi, something like that. Just some after hours of just kind of residential type fare, just smoke a few in late night sessions. I'd have to say Everybody Know Me is a pretty good one for that. Another pretty good smoking song on here would be Face On. I'd have to say this is a surprise. This is a surprising one just because you wouldn't think by the song title that this would be a smoking song, but it's a good concept for that. It's like a sparkly, kind of glittery smokish gem. I'd have to say this is like a ruminating cut. I would definitely feel like, and this is just a good night owl kind of music, I would say. Good treat for some day kind of wind down sessions, I would have to suppose. So once tasks are done and errands are done, those type pitches, I would have to say it's a good wind down kind of treat just to kind of have just within that sense. Just great for like 7:30 p.m. feeling the breeze and like the spring and summertime as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just a good one to kind of have and just wind down, just have some good times, fire up the PlayStation, something like that, just some kickback, flip on some comedies and stuff like that just within that relative pitch. Just a good enough glittery kind of night fare. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept for that. Another one that's kind of been some night type fare that works pretty damn well, I'd have to say, is Funeral Music. I definitely appreciated this one. This is like a creeping kind of spook of like a night outing song. I'd have to say this is like the song would be some regular antics on the town, I would have to say, and this is just good for some after hours fun, I would have to say. So it's a pretty dope enough concept. This is a pretty dope enough concept. Get this one in particular. This one has one of the best beats on the particular album. I would have to say definite concept for that. I'd have to say pretty much up there with Everybody Know Me, Grind 365, Anthem, some of those type ones. There are some other ones on here. I'm trying to think of which ones they were. Grind 365, Anthem, Everybody Know Me, Face On, Friends, or some of the best beats on here would be Grind 365, Anthem, Everybody Know Me, Funeral Music, some of those type ones. I'd have to say Let's Be Honest is a pretty malaise type one. That one definitely works pretty well. One Take is a pretty kind of sparkly type one. I'd have to say definitely appreciate that one. But talk about Let's Be Honest, that's a pretty good highlighted one. I'd have to say this is like another makeshift type song. This is a little bit in city type fare or more residential type fare, but it works pretty well. I'd have to say this is like a late day kind of wind down malaise. I'd have to say this one's just kind of an arduous, tasks were kind of a bitch today type tune, I'd have to suppose, but it still has like a good breeze about it. And it's just kind of the song still has a good breeze about it. And this is just basically like a real song. This is just some real talk type tune, something like that. Just a good pitch to kind of have just a real good. Let's Be Honest, it's the type of real type song that I think Tupac would have made if he would have made it to 2012, something like that. Just a real kind of honest living makeshift malaise, great for like 6:30 p.m., something like that, just within that relative pitch as far as that particularly kind of goes. This reminds me of like some alternative rock type haze, something like Marcy Playground, something like that. Just works within that relative pitch, I'd have to say. Real nice highlighted one. One Take is another highlighted one. This is definitely like an in-between kind of night hop. One Take is like an in-between kind of night hopper for getting ready to pop off. I'd have to say definite good concept for that, I'd have to suppose. It's like a litty kind of energizing dap cut, I would have to say, and this is a pretty good Kickstarter, so I definitely appreciate this one. This is a great one to kind of kick off the album. I'd have to say between One Take and Save Me, these are some excellent ones to kind of kick off the project as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some good night steppers as far as that particularly kind of happens. So this is an example of one to just kind of have for some nightlife and just night owl type fare, residential kind of in between stepping as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. And Save Me is another highlighted one. Definitely appreciate this one. This kind of Save Me kind of reminds me of Drake and Young Money a little bit. I'd have suppose pretty good concept for that. It's like a woozy kind of residential night traverse of a song, I'd have to say. This song is just getting late snackage, I would feel like, and this is just a vanilla kind of basic wind down energy, I would suppose. This song just has some vanilla basic wind down energy, I would definitely have to say, and this is just a pretty hooky song. So I definitely appreciate this one. Just reminds me of Young Money, Drake, stuff like that. Just late 2000s, early 2010s type fare as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just a real affable type one. Novi Novak's pretty good at these particular melodic hooks that has supposed to. That's another highlight one. Just a real immediate one to kind of kick things off and just be a nice immediate kind of highlight to kind of get as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just a real nice immediate one to kind of get within that particular pitch as far as that kind of goes. Grind 365 is a pretty highlighted one. This is one of the first ones I listened to off this particular album. Definitely enjoyed this one quite a bit. Pretty good nightclub song, I'd have to say. This is a get to the money. This song is a get to the money kind of jazzy electro hopper, I'd have to say. Definitely a good concept for that. This is a good amount. This song has a good amount of jive, I would have to say, and it's just a nice motivator, I would definitely feel like. And this is just some decent outing fare, I'd have to say. So it's a dope enough concept to get that one in particular. This is just vintage kind of Novi Novak here. This is more of him. Grind 365 is more Novi Novak on his turn up type fare and overall night stepping as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. This would be a great one to kind of hear at a night venue, something like that, just in a more underground type sense, I'd have to suppose, but still pretty highlighted one. This is kind of somewhat commercial, I'd have to say. This is a pretty looming type one that works pretty well. So this is a pretty ubiquitous type one, I'd have to suppose, just within a relative pitch. I mean, it's underground, but it has enough breakthrough to be able to be a pretty good cut for that. Definitely some of these break through a little bit more so than last time on Hibernation's Over, I'd have to suppose. I mean, there were ones like Black and Yellow and Hooked on the Field, but some of these do kind of break through a little bit more and do better of getting him some more shine, I'd have to say. Anthem is a pretty highlighted one. This is another nice one on here. This is a good night venue kind of banger, I'd have to say. It's like a basic outing bop, I would have to suppose. And this reminds me of like late 2000s Young Money, I'd have to say. And this is some social jazz kind of fun. Definitely pretty nice one. This is pretty similar to Anthem is pretty similar to Grind 365. This is like a good 1-2 punch to get some of these night outing type songs as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. These are just some overall highlighted type ones that really are these are just some overall good highlighted type ones for some sparkly fun as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. So these are some definite ones I recommend just for some immediate type energy, for some turn up as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. I don't know if I talked about Everybody Know Me, but I'll go ahead and talk about that one again. No, I think I talked about Everybody Know Me. So that's the particular pitch about that stuff. So to talk about some of these songs I didn't recommend on here. Basically, they're just for some poor type productions on here that just didn't lead to much, I would have to suppose. They're just for some clumsy type ones. Like Chicago is just a poor type one that just didn't really nail it that well. Paranoia was kind of a clumsy type one that probably should have had a better production, just overall execution. Same thing with Lead and Poetry in Motion. Those are just kind of some in-between type songs that just didn't really pull out the vibe that particularly well. Puppeteer was just kind of another poor one. Some of those type ones could it be were just some ones that just didn't really nail it that well. I feel like some of these just kind of had like the productions on some of these particular type songs just needed a lot more edge and just a little bit more just gleaming kind of jump off the page. I feel like some of the beats were just better on Hibernation's Over, but I feel like some of the ones on here just have a little bit more commercial spark about them that just had a little bit more breakthrough. This is kind of somewhat of like a patchy project in terms of some of the ones that just jump off the page and are just more gleaming type ones. I mean, I don't want to pigeonhole Novi Novak into being someone where only the turn up songs were particularly good, but it's just kind of the concept of some of these ones. I feel like the patchy kind of execution some of these songs, especially the ones that just have a little bit more steadfast type song topics and something that's not quite as loud and just overall loud pack as far as that pitch kind of goes, just didn't really have the affability of just really being that compelling. It just was more compelling on Hibernation's Over. There just were ones that kind of had the marketing towards those songs last time was just a little bit hungrier and a little bit more affable as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. That's just the basic concept. But those are some of the 7 songs I didn't recommend on there. So basically, to score this particular album, me recommending 11 songs out of 18 on this particular album. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 6.75 out of 10. It's definitely pretty solid stuff on here. There's some good stuff considering the fact that most folks have not reviewed Novi Novak and he's kind of still low-key and underground for the most part. He does have songs that do have like 300,000 hits and things like that, and a couple songs with some million plays like Black and Yellow and some of those type ones, but I just would have to suppose the basic concept about it is, yeah, this is a pretty overall solid type project. I'd have to say it just has some good stuff on here, a good amount of night type fare. Definitely feel like Novi Novak has some night out type songs just for some kind of late day kind of wind down. Definitely some city type tunes on here. Definitely the singles have some of that makeshift just for like a good sunny sky, just for like some good sunny skies kind of wind down makeshift and just overall steadfast kind of marketing just in terms of like a hustler's kind of mentality, I would have to suppose. But then you look after there are also some nightclub songs on this particular project. It's just the fact that there's not much else besides those particular facets, I'd have to suppose. So the social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I'm going to give the social score. So the social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I'm going to give the social score like a 7.25 out of 10. I feel like that's solid enough to be able to say within that particular pitch. There's definitely a batch of winners on here. Definitely some good songs on here like Funeral Music, One Size Fits All, Save Me, some of those type ones, Anthem, Grind 365, some of those particular type ones. I definitely feel like there's some nice ones. Face On is a pretty nice highlighted one. Definitely a good batch of hits. definitely a good batch of social hits. I'd have to suppose this album has more social quality than pure album quality. I'd have to suppose, so it's still, but it's still a dope enough concept to kind of get. So I would have to say there's a number of winners on this particular album that really makes it more, that really makes it above average. I'd have to suppose this within that relative pitch. So this is pretty much a pretty steadfast type winner. I'd have to say it has some makeshifts, some night outings, some stuff like that, but it's just kind of somewhat haphazard just because there aren't a ton of other strengths this time, just because the songwriting is just not quite as fleshed out as it needed to be, just with some of the songs that are not turn up or just more makeshift. I'd have to suppose that's the concept about it. In terms of future, like Rob Level, I'm not like in terms of future, I'm not really sure what Rob Level's been up to in recent times. Really, the information on him continues to be minimal. I'd have to suppose I'm gonna have to see what he did in 2013 and beyond. I know he eventually ditched the Novi Novak name by like 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. I'd have to suppose we'll have to see about some more of these. I know he at least has a few more albums, one of which is Hibernation's Over too. So we'll have to see about some of these in particular. But this is a solid enough project. I think Hibernation's Over is probably a little bit better. But despite that fact, I would still have to say that this particular project, Theory of Cognition, has more social affability and a little bit more commercial spark this time. So it's just kind of might as well get both these projects just would be able to say it's not too, it doesn't work that well to compare them, but I would have to say this is a pretty roundabout type project that is above decent, but still kind of has some degree of patchiness towards it, but I still recommend it.